Hey, Dave LaCalle with HeadGames Motorworks. Today we're going to pocket port an S58 BMW for 1500 horsepower. Check it out. So James Brusco brought his cylinder head over to us because he said, man, I really want to make some jam. He wants to make 1500 horsepower, and he knew he couldn't just do it by the cylinder head being stock. He's trying to make Impact Race. It's a race over in the Poconos, and I think actually they have them all over the country, and he's trying to make the race, and he needs to make 1500. Issue is that he brought the head kind of late, and we don't have time to do our CNC port on it, so he said, well, what can you do in the amount of time? So we said we can do the pocket port. He was in because he is a fan, and he knew that getting a pocket port is going to add a lot of CFM for the bargain price. Pocket porting is porting the area underneath the valve seat and the short side radius, which is on this side. So you are porting this area, and we're enlarging it and shaping it in relation to the size of the valve. So you don't want to make it too big, and if you're going to be off, you want to be off small, but if you make it too big, it just makes it lazy and it hurts it. But if you do this right with the right valve job, which is what we're going to do, this thing is going to make some jam. On the S58 head, it actually has somewhat of a pocket port. They CNC this area here on the BMW. This is not like the B58. The B58 is very choked up here, and they actually make it a little bit better on the S58, so we're very happy with BMW. Now, although BMW started the process, they didn't finish the process, but this is good information because you need to know that you can see how BMW did that, and that is because it is the most crucial area of any cylinder head on the planet. So a lot of guys are going to go to the gasket. They're going to look at that area of the port, and they're thinking, if I enlarge it, because gasket companies are having that conversation that, oh my gosh, if I make the hole this big, the head porter is going to know where to take the cylinder head to because we're making the cross-sectional area to this. No, nobody's having that conversation. BMW having that conversation. They know that the area underneath the valve seat is the most crucial area, so they enlarged it. They didn't finish the job though, and that's the job for HeadGames today. So we got my Makita GD0603 and the HeadGames half-inch super spiral burr. We are going to pretty much do all the porting with this, all the roughing in, and then we're going to hit it again with another burr, and I'll show you that in a little bit. We're also going to use this goods and speed control. The goods and speed controller, you can run it high or you can run it low. So for all of our rough grinding, we are going to run it high, and then when we go to finish grind, make everything nice, we're going to go to low. Let's get started. Here's the part that I put in every video, and I just want you to notice how my hands moved. So look, this is nothing. You see how the grinder will only go up to that corner there and down to there naturally. And that's all you want to do. You do not want to be going up here or down here. Well, you can do down there, but you want to do, what I do is I do every wall. Like normally I would do every wall, and I do every wall like this side, and then I would do the center, and that's way you can keep it consistent. I also want you to notice that right here, there is a lip. Now the lip, I am not going to remove with the grinder. Will the 3/8 hit it? That is a possibility that the 3/8 will hit this, but the better way to do this is through the valve job and not with your grinder, because the problem is you're going to dig all this out. You're going to make it too big. You don't want to make it too big. And you're probably going to change the shape. So the best way to do this is to wait for an actual machine. You machine it and then you blend it. And when I say machine, I'm talking about the seat and guide machine. A lot of guys are going to try to do this at home. I get you. But you should be taking it to a machine shop that possibly knows something about machining, and they can do a good valve job on it, and that's when they can hit the throat and they can size it correctly with a set cutter. So they'll be setting the cutter to a certain percentage of the size of the valve. Some things I'm not going to give away, and that's trying to figure out what the percentage is, because that is hard found information that we can only find on the flow bench. We basically take it to say, we're just going to use round numbers, 87%. We'll open it up to 88%. We'll open it up to 89%. We flow it each time, and we see where the percentage likes with the valve job and the valve, because it has to be a married situation there. I mentioned that the bowl area, when you size it, the sizing is very important. Well, so is the short turn. So the short side's next, and let me show you. This is the short side radius, and it is the most crucial area, because if you lay this back too much, you basically lose anything you would gain. Kind of like if you make the bowl too big, you lose. Here, you lose even more. If you get this wrong, it is absolutely going to destroy it. Now, here's what BMW usually will CNC this area, but they leave a big ridge on this side. And when we're pocket porting it, now we're changing the size, which means we're changing the shape. And what I'm going to do here is this area right here. So we're going to widen the short turn, because we're going to make the bowl bigger. And I'm not, again, telling you what size, but this right here is airflow in the making. First thing I want to talk about is the length of the burr, because if you use a short burr, then you are not going to get all the way back and where you need to go. The longer it is, the better the tool. And here's another thing I want to show you. Now, you saw when I was grinding, I always start from the back and work our way forward. And you don't want to go here and work your way back, because then you're going to create a ridge. So I go all the way back, I go into the corners, go into the corner, and then I bring it all the way in. You don't want to start here and just lazily do whatever. You really need to pick a side, pick a maybe a pattern, and just stick with it. But as I said, I would suggest always going from the back side forward, and then do the corners, or do the corners first, and then do here. All the short turns are done. How you like meow? Time to change tools. Now we got the 3/8. This is the finisher, is what we're going to call it, the 3/8 burr, double cut burr. Now, some guys might want to try to actually shape with this thing. I say you're crazy. Now, all we do is we're going to finish the porting by making this double cut burr. It leaves a very nice finish, and that's all we're looking for. All right, so we're going to turn the volume down. Here we have the finished product on the intake side. Yes, I have not measured them yet on camera. Rest assured, I am measuring. Now it's time to do the exhaust. And just a quick mention about the measuring thing. I will tell you that when you get proficient enough in porting, you will actually see the shape, you'll see the size. So don't think that every time or whenever you're doing this, actually I check them at the end, because if the shape's not there, the size is not there. The exhaust side, you can see that BMW did it again. So they did like a little bit of a pocket port, but they left a really weird shape. And all this is not the size, only this area right here. We are gonna blend all of that in, and we're gonna make it all one size into this. Now, This is actually the optimum size. We're not going to make it any bigger. We're only going to blend it from here to here and make that all one size. Two things I want to point out here with the S58 is it's really easy to hit this guide boss. That guide boss really gets in the way from any kind of burr and anything you're trying to do in here. It's just a problem. We're not going to take it out, but I just want to say that I hate that thing. I also want to mention that I don't just use the front of the burr like this. You see how like the front of the burr is? On this deal, I think it's important because the shape is so, I guess I want to call it shallow, that I use the back of the burr right up to in front of the seat. You see how that's right there? And I use the back of the burr because the only way you're going to make that shape is to use the entire burr. On most heads, I don't use the back, but here I am. Getting to the short side on this deal, it kind of sucks to see, but right here is a big bump. So you remember how I told you on the intake side that we're going to widen them? Same scenario here. So we're gonna have to hit this thing with some lube. I use Bo Lube. Now Bo Lube, I think, should sponsor HeadGames Motorworks videos because I like to use this amazing stuff. This was, you could look it up, Boeing actually made this for fasteners. Anyway, so I'm using the double cut 3/8 spur. I'm gonna go back over it, did all the short turns, and I'm just gonna blend everything in. I do the short side first, and I'll show you why in a second. I do the short sides first when I'm doing the final blend because you can see here there's a line, that's where I was blending up to. Now all I have to do is blend it from here to here, which is a natural movement. If you did it from here, you're going to go up and you're going to make another bump on the short side. I don't like to do that. So this is why when I'm final blending, I want to do it from this end. All right, so this thing is ready for guides and valve job, and then it's going to get milled and assembled with GSE parts. All right, so we're trying to get this head ready for the race and trying to get it out of here. Obviously, this is really hard and hard to video at the same time. You got a selfie video here. Now, what Matt's doing back here is he's doing the valve job. The valve job is actually the most crucial area of this whole scenario because if you get the valve job wrong, the head dies. That's right, because a lot of guys think a valve job is just a valve job, but the right valve job is really the crown jewel of the whole thing. So if you guys ever watched my video on doing, I did a video on our B58s, and we tried blending the valve job, we tried not blending the valve job, we tried a lot of different ways of doing it, and it didn't always pick up, it actually hurt it. And same scenario to S58, so we have a tried and true valve job that's flow tested, and it is ready to rock and roll. Another thing I want to touch on is seats. So a lot of guys are putting oversized valves in these heads and they're not thinking about the seat size. So the outside diameter of the valve seat is actually pretty close to the same size as OEM. So you can see this is the OEM 45-degree angle and how close it is to the edge or actually being on the aluminum. And if you were to put an oversized valve in it, it would be into the aluminum and it would no longer be on the valve seat. Same thing on the exhaust. The exhaust, you got like a little bit of room here, but there's really nowhere to put an oversized valve in it. And for the guys who are doing that, you can just tell how they're doing it wrong. So a valve seat is like a heat sink. So if you take away the properties of that heat sink, if you take away the outside diameter of it, it no longer is going to dissipate heat the way it's supposed to. The best way you can do, so on our race stuff, like we put an oversized valve seat, and not so much an oversized valve, but a really thick, oversized valve seat, and that is just to make a bigger heat sink, so it takes heat away from the valve and it dissipates it into the cylinder head. And when the guys were putting these oversized valves in it, as I said, they don't actually fit on the valve or on the valve seat, but they're also just removing all of that area where you can possibly take heat away from the valve. Just lose-lose right there. So for the GSC parts, we have their Beehive spring kit and we have their valves. Now, I'm going to show you their spring. And we are at 108 pounds on the seat, 224 open. We're 102 thousandths away from coil bind, so there's plenty of room for camshaft. And we're at a spring rate of 273. Also got the valve, the exhaust valve, I'm very, very proud of, because we worked with GSC very closely, and one of the things we talked about was putting a tool up on the back side of the valve, and Greg freaking nailed it. The team at GSC really nailed it on this deal. Now we have a swirl polish on the back side of the valve, and it flows 40 CFM better than OEM. So not only are you getting something that works, and we also made the margin bigger, so it takes heat away from the valve. So you not only do you have something that works, when I say works, I mean it's going to create a situation where you have more reliability, but you're also going to have something that picks up power because it flows better than the OEM. Now, I think a lot of people have a brand loyalty, and they don't know why they have a brand loyalty. Maybe because that is because of price, and not because they actually know why it's better. Here, I'm showing you why it's better. For most of the springs on the market, now we've done a test on this, most of the springs on the market, this spring is more than 40 pounds on the seat and 30 pounds open pressure more than anything on the market, except for one valve spring. And it's still better than that spring on the rate. So the rate's gonna give you the RPM. So a lot of people are gonna install their parts because they get a better deal on it, or they just don't know why they're better. Or worse, they don't know anything. They don't know any different than they just want to install this brand of part. What we do is we only install the best because we think that you deserve the best. So now we're at the final leg, and Greg's assembling. We have his Trago assembly bench, and this makes it easy for us. What it is, it's an air-powered assembly bench, so that way we're not fighting trying to put this thing together. And here we are with the finished product. It is ready for 1500 horsepower. Now the only thing I wish we got to do was the combustion chambers, but there was not enough time, unfortunately. So maybe James will bring it back and we can do our CNC port on it, but for now, he's gonna have to do with what he has. Now doing the combustion chamber, the only thing that will add is that he's gonna be able to run more timing, and you can actually run more boost, more timing, and it would have less area for detonation. Even though it's DI, he's going to also have a port injection. It still helps to do the combustion chamber because it's going to shroud the valve, so it's going to flow better, it's going to be all around better. Unfortunately, as I said, there wasn't enough time, but now this dude's ready to rock and roll for Pocono. All right, so James is here to pick up his head, and unfortunately we only have one mic, so hopefully this will work. So we're having a conversation off mic about the combustion chamber. So it's something that we discussed in the video, and your question was, how much power would it pick up if we did the CNC port over the pocket port?
That's right.
Now, what we've seen, like in the GTR, is that 1500 horsepower is that it might not pick up power. It's not going to pick up power at the top end, so it wouldn't make like 1700 because you did this. It would make 150 horsepower is what we typically see on the GTR in the mid-range, and we also see that in the 2JZ, where it's not always going to pick up peak power. It picks up power everywhere, and then the peak power stays the same. Mm-hmm. And it would also help you with detonation. It would help you because the combustion chamber is going to be done. You'd be able to run more timing, and you can run more boost. and that means more power.
So the peak power would stay the same, but my area under the curve would increase. So I would have more total power, but the peak would still be at the same number.
So now the car's going to pull
more in the middle too.
Yeah. So the car's going to feel a lot faster, and it would actually run a whole lot better having all that done versus just just over the pocket port. Now he's trying to make a race, and so we didn't have time. Yeah, we didn't have time. So we had to make some sacrifices, but
little sacrifices.
But we'll bring it back, and we'll make more power.
Come back next year for a cleanup.
Awesome. So I want to say thank you for trusting HeadGames to do your cylinder head. I know you're a fan, and I appreciate that. We've had some really good conversations off camera, so I wanted to say thank you and appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate all the great information you give to me and the community, and we really, really appreciate it because it helps us learn and grow and advance the platform.
Awesome. Is there any questions you have? We can go over it now.
And we have a million, but not time for what the camera has. We'll run the batteries out. Stay cool, guys.
All right, that does it for us today. I sure hope you got something out of this. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Toodles.